You know, growing up is funny. I remember how weird it was to get to an age where a decade was an actual relatable time period for me. You know, when you're 13 years old, I mean, a decade, that might as well be a lifetime, right? But then when you hit 20, suddenly it's different. You probably have a ton of memories of being 10 years old, and suddenly a decade is actually measurable on a personal level. And I feel like I hit those mental milestones every 5 or so years now. 15 years ago feels like yesterday, whereas before it was just sort of this nebulous amount of time. And now that I've reached my 30s, 20 years is suddenly becoming a relevant time frame for me. You know, it's weird throughout the day to have these random thoughts, be like, oh yeah, I remember that movie, I saw that in theaters 20 years ago. And obviously this is something that we all go through as human beings. There may be someone watching this video who's 10, 20 years older than me going, kid, you don't even know how bad it's gonna get. I don't know why they were New York Italian, but we all experience the passage of time. We all age, and we all know that's going to happen when we're young, but it's just different when it finally happens to you. There's a difference between knowing it and experiencing it. When you suddenly realize a memory that you think on a lot was actually multiple decades ago now. And similarly, in the world of video games, 20 years seems like an eternity. 20 years is the difference between Super Mario Bros. And Resident Evil 4. It's the difference between Doom and The Last of Us. And now, as we reach the end of 2025, the first of the 7th gen consoles turns 20 years old. It was on November 22nd, 2005 that the Xbox 360 hit store shelves and changed the gaming landscape forever. And that's not me playing favorites necessarily. I think all of the 7th gen consoles actually changed the gaming landscape forever in their own way. But the 360 was the one that impacted me the most on a personal level. And that's kind of the angle that I want to take with this video. This isn't going to be some dry documentary about the development and life cycle of the Xbox 360 as a console. This is probably going to be a very self-indulgent and nostalgia-fueled look back on the console, what I loved and what I hated, and just sharing stories of that console generation that I hope that many of you can relate to. And maybe if you can't relate, maybe you were really late to the 7th generation, maybe you missed it entirely, or maybe you were just too young to fully appreciate it. The aim of this video is just to give personal insight and anecdotes about what it was like when the 360 was this fresh, new experience, and to celebrate it on its 20th birthday. That's the aim of the video anyway. This is probably just going to be a lot of nostalgia baiting and rose-tinted glasses. But either way, this is an ode to the Xbox 360. Didn't bump my shirt all the way. Better cover up. I don't want this video demonetized. So, as you may or may not be aware, the Xbox 360 launched a full year before the PS3 and Wii. It was the first of the 7th gen consoles to market, and definitely got a nice sales and marketing boost as a result. One that was needed, as I think it's fair to say that the original Xbox, as much as I love it and it's very special to me, it definitely lost to the PS2 in the 6th generation console wars. But I mean, that's a whole nother video, right? With the launch of the Xbox 360 came the 2.0 version of Xbox Live. Now, of course, Xbox Live was a pillar of the original Xbox. While the PS2 and GameCube were technically able to play online, be honest, how many people do you know personally who actually went through the trouble of buying the adapters and setting everything up? And hey, listen, I'm not talking shit. I was one of them. If you played Resident Evil Outbreak or SOCOM 2 online on the PS2 back in the day, there's a good chance that we crossed paths. But Xbox Live was different. The online functionality of the original Xbox games, they were all unified under Microsoft-owned servers instead of individual third-party servers that were maintained by the developers. Which is why you were able to have features like a friends list and a unified username, aka gamertag, across all games.
I got some boys here'll make you wish you were never born. I've got Arctic Avenger.
Dark Master is in trouble.
Buffalo Soldier.
Oh, Dark Master man.
.com.
I'm a Dark Master.
And Sleeping Giant.
What? Wake up! Is my turn?
The original release of Xbox Live was ahead of its time, maybe even a little to its detriment, since it required broadband and wouldn't even work with dial-up modems, which they were still somewhat prevalent at the turn of the century.
It's all about broadband, my man. You gotta have a high-speed internet service.
Like DSL? Or cable?
Exactly.
The other thing it required was hard drive space, because it allowed you to download additional content, aka everybody's favorite three-letter acronym, BBC DLC. There were map packs for Halo 2, additional missions in Splinter Cell, there's a whole campaign expansion for Brute Force. Guys, come on, remember Brute Force? That game ruled. And so much more. Microsoft just really pushed to embed Xbox Live into the branding of the console, as they really saw the future of gaming in online multiplayer. They really learned from the mistakes of the Dreamcast, who I think it was fair to say they are the real, true trailblazers of online console multiplayer, but Xbox Live really became the first premium online console experience. And the Xbox 360 took that and ran with it. Putting the online multiplayer part of Xbox Live aside for now, Xbox Live on the 360 had a whole host of content you could download. I'm talking demos, trailers, music videos, movies, gamer pictures, and dashboard themes. I know the idea of downloading a game trailer onto your console to watch it seems bizarre, but the streaming video revolution, that hadn't quite taken its stranglehold on the internet yet. I mean, even YouTube was only launched just a few months before the 360. When the 360 marketplace shut down in 2024, I went on a journey back in time through my download history, and it was crazy how many trailers and interviews that I downloaded back in the day. Like Major Nelson and Tina Wood would do these like weekly videos covering conventions and Xbox news, and I watched those things religiously. And again, you had to download these videos, you couldn't stream them, so they were taking up a lot of my hard drive space. I only had like a 20 gig hard drive, so I'd have to periodically clean them out to make room for the other storage hog on my hard drive, demos. Man, kids are spoiled nowadays with the amount of free-to-play games out there and quality free-to-play games out there like Fortnite, Counter-Strike 2, Warzone. Back in my day, the only free game we got was Undertow, because there was an Xbox Live outage and that was how they kind of were saying sorry. They gave us a free. It's actually pretty fun. It was a pretty good Xbox Live Arcade game, honestly, but that was a really big deal, I remember. Like, we got a free full game. I mean, Xbox Live Arcade game, but still. I know this is a crazy idea in 2025, but if you wanted a new game back then, you had to pay for it. And since I was just too young to have a job in the early days of the Xbox 360, that meant biding my time until a birthday or Christmas. But you know what made it all bearable? The free demos. It seemed like there was a free demo for just about every goddamn game that came out on the console. I can honestly say that I've probably spent more time in the demos for some games than I have in the actual retail copies when I eventually got them. I lost so many hours to dicking around in the Saints Row demo that locked you into this small section of Stillwater with these oppressive red walls. Open world sandbox games like these were still novel back then, so I really had a blast just messing around with the physics and causing mayhem. I remember if you could manipulate the physics just right, you could actually get past the demo barriers and explore the half-functional rest of the map. Oh, and Dead Rising. My friends used to sleep over and spend all night playing the Dead Rising demo. You were essentially just locked into Paradise Plaza and given a 10-minute timer, and when your timer ran out, it would just restart the demo. So we just take turns and see who could kill the most zombies in their allotted 10-minute time frame. Oh my god, you should have heard the hype when we discovered that hidden katana on top of the awning near the juice shop. BioShock, Condemned, Just Cause. Oh my god, there were so many demos that I just played over and over and over again. It was such a great feature that added so much value to the console for kids who could only really afford to pick up a handful of games a year. Unless they utilized GameStop's predatory trade-in tactics, which I did. I don't even want to think about how much money I lost just buying games and then trading them in a couple weeks later. But that's a whole other issue. One of the best decisions I think that Microsoft made for Xbox Live was to sell many of the 360s bundled with an Xbox Live headset. Online voice chat was still a pretty novel concept in 2005. You know, the original Xbox had that functionality too, but not a lot of people went out of their way to buy that kind of expensive and awkward peripheral. You know the one I'm talking about. Same with the PS3. I remember that actually being a big point of contention when the console launched. It used Bluetooth for its headsets, which was awesome because it allowed wireless headsets, but Bluetooth headsets were also really new and really expensive at the time. It eventually evened out later in the console's lifespan as more third-party options became available and the headsets got cheaper, but certainly in my experience, early PS3 voice chat was pretty sparse compared to Xbox. But that being said, their headsets were way better quality than those dinky, stock plastic ones that came with the 360. You know the ones I'm talking about. I probably went through like 3 or 4 of them over the lifespan of that console because they were just so goddamn flimsy. But anyway, because such a large chunk of the player base had mics, early Xbox Live was unlike anything I've ever experienced. Everyone in the match would just be shooting the shit or talking shit. You'd get squeakers having breakdowns when you nabbed the power weapon they wanted. You had suburban white guys rapping 50 Cent tracks right into their mic for no discernible reason, while 4 other guys are telling them to shut the fuck up. You had kids whose parent was vacuuming in the background, completely washing out everything they said. And every now and again, you'd run into that one kid who was way too young to be on Xbox Live, and they would just say something completely benign to the team, only to be berated by a bunch of teenagers calling him slurs because his voice was just a little too high. Okay, yeah, I realized saying that out loud. Xbox Live was it's a pretty toxic place sometimes. But at the same time, that was sort of just most internet interactions you had in the mid-2000s. Not trying to justify it, but, you know, if you were there, you know what I'm talking about. It was kind of just par for the course. But of course, there was a positive side too. You had like genuine lifelong friendships that would form over a few matches of Halo or Raw. In fact, something that I feel like is really lightning in a bottle, something that will really never be replicated again, is Halo 3 lobby hopping. See, back when Halo 3 first launched, people created these incredible custom games and maps using the Forge mode. You had games like Jaws, which was a modified infection game mode that took place in the water off of Last Resort in Halo, that's what they called it in Halo 3, right? But the zombie was super fast and had to kind of stay in the water, while the survivors were all stranded up on top of these big antennas with snipers, and the sharks would all swarm and bite at the poles, you know, hit them with the energy swords, and try to knock the poles down and knock the survivors into the water. And even if you fell in the water, you still had a fighting chance if you could make it over to these propane tanks that you could launch like mini rockets, which, you know, that's a nice homage to Jaws. Then there was Lava Pit, which was just this donut-shaped demolition derby up in the skies above Sandbox with this fiery insta-kill ball in the center. So you'd all just hop into vehicles and bash into each other, trying to knock one another off the edge. If you got flipped and fell out of your vehicle, your movement speed was reduced to like this slow walk. So you had to desperately crawl to a new vehicle before someone ran you over. But there were also mines that would spawn too, so you could just bait vehicles into ramming you before dropping a cheeky mine and sending your pursuer flying. There were so many creative and interesting custom games like these. Cops and Robbers, Prison Break, D-Day, dude, I could name 1,000. But it was the sense of community and the culture of lobby hopping that really made these maps shine. Which, I guess I should explain lobby hopping. Alright, let me set the scene, right? Imagine, if you will, a chilly weekend night in the fall of 2007. You got your Mountain Dew gamer fuel, a few slices of Pizza Hut within arm's reach, no homework to worry about, just the whole night, the whole weekend ahead of you. You hop on Xbox Live, you boot up Halo 3, and almost instantly you get a game invite from a buddy. You join in, you invite your friends, and they invite their friends, and before long, you got a full 16-player lobby running Cops and Robbers. You play for an hour or two, some people log off for the night, others switch to campaign mode, some switch to different games entirely. The lobby just naturally dwindles and dies down, but before long, you're getting game invites from recent players. Folks who you don't know personally, but they were just in that Cops and Robbers game. So you join them, and maybe they're playing Griffball. You invite your friends and your recent players, since you know they're all on Halo 3 right now, and the lobby fills back up. And then you play with them for a little while. You meet a bunch of new people, and then as that lobby inevitably dies down, a subset of them split off to play Lava Pit and invite you, and this lobby too fills up with friends of friends of friends, or random recent players and their friends, and you just end up in this cycle of hopping from custom game lobby to custom game lobby, sometimes with people you know, sometimes with complete strangers, sometimes with a mix of both. I remember starting off a night playing a custom game exclusively with guys from my school, and as the hours go by, I hop from lobby to lobby to lobby, and before I know it, I'm the only American in a full lobby of Scottish dudes with like the thickest Scottish accents playing King of the Castle. Like, I could barely understand what they were saying, and I'm pretty sure they were mostly making fun of me for being American, but I still had a blast.
I went to Craig Newton. I just put down to Royal Edinburgh College to help get the job. There's too much discrimination in this town, man. Because they're both schools, right? And we're all in this together. And I wanted to put across the general idea rather than the details. Like, people get all hung up on details. Like, which school did I go to? How many O-grades did I get? Could be like 6, could be none. It's not important.
And then a few lobbies later, I end up playing with a stranger who I find out is actually from my hometown and friends with my sister on MySpace. It's like I unintentionally traveled across the Atlantic and all the way back just in Halo 3 lobbies. And some of those Scottish dudes were like still on my friends list like a decade later. It was such a weird like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon moment, and that was just like a normal weekend in Halo 3 for me. I did have a few similar experiences playing COD 4 because a lot of people would host Michael Myers lobbies and invite all of their recent players. If you remember Mike Myers lobbies, like your real one, what I would do for a full match of Mike Myers in COD 4 right now. God damn, that was so much fun.
He's right behind me!
But there was nothing else quite to the scope that the custom game scene in Halo 3 had. At least none that I was a part of anyway. And I'll be honest, looking back, it's kind of sad. I wondered why I didn't have a similar experience of lobby hopping when Halo Reach came out, because the Forge mode in Halo Reach was even more in-depth and crazier than Halo 3's. But for some reason, the experience just wasn't there, at least for me. And I have a theory. As to why. See, the liveliness of Xbox Live that we saw in the era of Grawl and Gears 1, all the way through to like Halo 3 and COD 4, it just didn't seem to persist into the latter years of the console's lifespan. And I think, this is a theory that I have, but I think it can be traced back to just before the console's 3rd birthday in November of 2008. That was when Microsoft introduced the Next Xbox Experience, or the NXE update. This was a massive dashboard overhaul that completely reworked the UI for the entire console, and it added features like installing games onto the hard drive for improved loading times. It introduced the Netflix streaming app, which was at the time an exclusive feature to the 360, and the underappreciated Xbox Live avatar system, which, I mean, admittedly, that was just kind of a blatant ripoff of Mii's from the Wii, but at least they tried to iterate on it with things like avatar rewards. But most importantly, it added one of the most requested features since the inception of Xbox Live. And it's a feature that, in my opinion, killed the early Xbox Live culture that I was just waxing nostalgic over. A feature that I also desperately wanted without realizing the effect that it would have. I'm talking about party chat. Prior to the NXE, voice chat was restricted to in-game chat only. If you were not in the same game and the same multiplayer lobby as your friend, you could not voice chat with them. And even if you were, you pretty much had to put up with everyone else in the lobby listening in on your conversation. Like, yes, nobody in this Gears match wants to hear me ask my friends about the homework in Mr. Locke's AP history class, but too bad, it's due tomorrow, and I don't have any minutes left on my flip phone, so I gotta ask them here. While they did have a private chat feature where you could talk regardless of what games you were playing, it was limited to just you and one other person in the chat, and of course it cut you out of game chat entirely so you couldn't hear your team. Now, this was no big deal if you're both playing single-player games, but for multiplayer games, I mean, that could be a really big hindrance. The voice chat system basically forced people that if they wanted to talk with their friends, they had to share with the group. But then party chat comes along. And don't get me wrong, I love it. I can now talk to up to 7 of my friends while we're all playing different games. It's amazing. It's like having Ventrilo or TeamSpeak, but directly installed on our consoles. The NXE launched right after Fallout 3 dropped, so I remember just hopping into parties while we were playing our very first playthroughs of Fallout and just discovering the vastness of the wasteland together. But then, over time, there were less people talking in Gears matches, in COD lobbies, and Halo 3 games. There was certainly still chatter, but just not as much. And you could see that they have mics plugged in because they have the little microphone symbol next to their name, but they aren't reacting to what you're saying. And you realize they're in a party chat, sometimes with other people in the match. And you start to notice that pattern more and more. You gotta warn a teammate about an enemy behind them, but they just don't react. You ask for a buddy to revive you, and they don't even notice that you're down. This happens over and over and over and over until it just kind of becomes the norm, and you just stop even bothering trying to communicate with your teammates. And hey, I'm not trying to judge or anything, I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes I don't have the social energy to chit-chat with strangers. Sometimes I just want to shoot the shit with my pals and only my pals while playing some COD or whatever. And again, this wasn't an immediate shift as soon as the NXE dropped. Like, Modern Warfare 2 had some, pretty lively voice chat, to say the least.
You little bitch-ass motherfuckers, why you got a microphone on? Say what the fuck you want to say. Say what's on your mind. What do you want to say, you fucking...
And that game came out a full year after the NXE launch. But it definitely snowballed and got worse as time went on. I really think that the introduction of party chat spelled the beginning of the end for what I would consider to be the golden age of Xbox Live. Over time, the community just felt less like a community and more like matchmaking, you know? Everybody would just stick to their small, personal, social bubbles instead of opening themselves up to the vast, anonymous public. And I guess that's kind of just symptomatic of how the internet as a whole evolved during the mid-2000s. From anonymous, open, forum-style discussions to modern social media. And to be clear, we all desperately wanted party chat. It was kind of a no-brainer. I don't know why it wasn't there from the start. I'm not saying that Microsoft was dumb to implement it. It was inevitable. But in hindsight, I really just think it changed the landscape of Xbox Live, and for the worse, in my opinion. But hey, that's just my opinion. I made so many friends on Xbox Live in those early days, and in the moment, I really just thought that this was what online gaming was all about. I thought this was just what online gaming would be forever. But I don't know, now here we are. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know, modern gaming just feels a lot lonelier. It feels a lot quieter, I guess is the word. And granted, part of that is just growing up, right? Some of your friends just move on from gaming. I remember losing a chunk of my friends list when everybody went off to college and didn't want to lug their 360s with them to their dorms. And now that me and my friends are getting married and having kids, it's really a struggle to even coordinate just an hour or two of game time a week with like just two of my closest friends. But I also can't chalk all of that up to age. I don't know that I've made a single online friend through gaming in like 15 years. Games like Squad and Hell Let Loose, they're kind of a breath of fresh air. Games like Squad and Hell Let Loose are kind of a breath of fresh air in a lot of ways because they force communication. And for a brief moment back in 2019, it felt like I traveled back to this golden social gaming era when WoW Classic launched. But I think it's fair to say that that era of online gaming, it's gone. Or maybe I'm just not looking in the right places. I don't know. I admittedly missed the Fortnite and Minecraft craze of the 2010s, so maybe there was something there that was similar to my experience lobby hopping in Halo 3. I don't know. Let me know in the comments though. Do you think I'm crazy, or did you feel this social shift in gaming in 2008, 2009, 2010? Or do you think I'm crazy and gaming is just as social as it's ever been for you guys? I can only talk from my own experience here. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Like, that's not just me being a YouTuber baiting for engagement. I genuinely want to hear your thoughts. One of the other great contributions the Xbox 360 brought with it, and if you're a fan of my channel, you already know what it is. That's right, achievements. I remember being a kid on the schoolyard during recess, and some snot-nosed brat starts mouthing off about how he got all 120 stars in Mario 64, And I know for a fact that he can barely hold a controller because he was just over my house the other day struggling to beat Mumbo's Mountain in Banjo-Kazooie. But I can't prove him wrong, you know? It's really just his word against mine. If only there was some way that a gamer could prove that he accomplished a great and difficult feat. One that is tied to global servers, maybe, and almost impossible to cheat. You see where I'm going with this. Achievements were obviously a huge success for the Xbox 360, so much so that Steam and the PS3 rushed to compete by building their own systems years after their respective platform launches. Long term, I think PlayStation still won this battle because the Platinum Trophy is such a small but meaningful addition to the system, especially as someone who, despite having an entire channel dedicated to getting achievements, I don't even know what my gamer score is. I could not tell you for the life of me. I only care about 100% in games. Achievements were a genius move that spawned an entire sub-community within gaming, one that I very much love. If this video was picked up by the algorithm and this is your first video of mine, hey, what's up? You like the video so far? Maybe want to subscribe? Ooh, woo. You like the video so far? What do you think? You want to subscribe? You like what you're seeing, big boy? But if you're a newcomer, you may or may not be aware, but my entire channel is kind of built on achievement hunting in old, weird games. I love achievements. And I think a big part of why I love it isn't just the actual, overcoming of the challenge to unlock them. It's more so that they act almost like a form of record keeping. I love just going on True Achievements and looking at the timestamps on my achievement streaks. Take this 49 achievement streak I had over the course of 8 days in November 2008, for example. None of these achievements alone are particularly interesting or even really that hard, right? But it tells a story, one that is of how fucking awesome this week in November was. The streak starts with some Fallout 3 achievements, since that had just come out the week prior, and then it goes right into a streak of Gears 2 achievements, since that dropped on the 7th, and then after that, it's all World at War achievements because that dropped on the 10th. I mean, god damn, we were eating good back then, dude. 3 of the greatest games of that generation dropping within 12 days of each other. Oh man, the excitement of those 2 weeks is immortalized on my profile in that achievement streak. And it's cool to be able to look back and have it on record that it was on June 24th, 2009, that my friend group got so tilted at each other to the point of full-on screaming while we were desperately trying to get that VidMaster annual achievement in Halo 3. And I love that you can even see that we finally popped it at 1 a.m., given that I think we started at 8 p.m. And it's cool to be able to see that my first achievement in Modern Warfare 2 was on launch day at 5 a.m. because I woke up early before school just to play it. Which, I gotta say, shout out to my mom. I sent her to the midnight release for Modern Warfare 2 because she wouldn't let me stay up and go there myself since it was a school night, so we compromised on her going, picking it up, bringing it home, and then I would just wake up a couple hours earlier and play it until 7 a.m. and then leave for the bus. I think I also had her do that with Halo 3. She's a beast. Shout out to mom. My point is that it's just really cool to have achievements act as sort of a diary and being able to look back and see exactly when you were experiencing these games for the first time and what you were doing in them when. Obviously, I don't remember every single achievement I've gotten. I would say that probably less than 1% of these actually drudge up any nostalgic memory on their own, but the story that they all weave together does, and I find myself looking back at my old achievements a couple times a year just to reminisce. But while we're talking achievements, let me tell you, early achievements, they were, oh boy, they were rough. Since the whole concept of an achievement was brand new and Microsoft was forcing developers to implement them into their games if they wanted to ship on the console, there were some achievements in the early 360 games that, to use a phrase that the kids say, they did not get the assignment. There are some infamous examples like the achievements in Quake 4 and Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter for being #1 in the global leaderboards. Hard enough to get back in the day, but virtually impossible to get now without hundreds and hundreds of hours of boosting. Which, I gotta give a shout out to Mike Kroon from the Internet Box podcast. If you know, you know. I could see a developer thinking it would be cool to have an achievement that would be really, really hard to get and thus be incredibly rare and reserved for only the most hardcore of your player base for them to display like a Medal of Honor. You know, an achievement that was designed to be virtually unobtainable by the vast majority. It's not a bad idea on paper at the time, but I just don't think they realized that achievement hunting and 100%ing games would become this pretty sizable sub-hobby within gaming. Then on the other hand, you had developers with the opposite problem. Call of Duty 2 was a launch title, and you can 100% that game just by beating it on Veteran. No specific challenges or secrets to uncover, you just beat the game on Veteran, and there's your 1,000 points. Then you had Hitman Blood Money with achievements for beating the game on each of the 4 different difficulties, only for them not to stack, which means that you need to do 4 full playthroughs on each of the difficulties to get all 4 achievements, and that principle extends to the achievements for getting 5 Silent Assassin ratings on each of the 4 difficulties. You can't just get 5 Silent Assassin ratings on the hardest difficulty, you have to do 5 perfect missions on 4 different difficulties. You get the idea. It's a nightmare. Actually, it's really not a nightmare because Hitman Blood Money, come on, best Hitman game, right? Those games are designed for you to play the missions over and over and over again, so it's really actually not that bad, but you get what I'm saying. But then you also had games like Dead Rising that nailed achievements right on the first try. Zombie Genocide, I don't know if I can say that word on YouTube anymore. Zombie Annihilator, 7-Day Survivor, Frank the Pimp. Capcom got what Microsoft was putting down with the achievement system. Dead Rising became a favorite in the achievement hunting community because of how fun and unique the achievements were, while being mixed in with some of the most brutally oppressive achievements. I apologize if you watched my video on the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. I'm rehashing some of the same ground, but I think this is very relevant for a video about the Xbox 360. I gotta talk about 7-Day Survivor. 7-Day Survivor is a legendary achievement because it requires you to survive in the endless mode in Dead Rising for a full 7 in-game days, which is about 14 hours real time. And the whole time, your health meter is slowly draining, so you actually have to venture out and periodically scavenge for food, all while bosses randomly spawn throughout the map. It's a wild achievement, and one that I think killed, or at least contributed, to the death of a lot of Xbox 360s. Leaving the console running for 14 straight hours, that cannot be good for it, and that is a lot of heat buildup, especially because the Zephyr model of the 360 with the improved heatsink, that wouldn't come out for another 8 months after Dead Rising's release. So I wouldn't be surprised if that achievement was directly responsible for a bunch of Red Rings of Death. Which, I really can't talk about the Xbox 360 without talking about Red Rings, right? Those early 360 models did not last. Even now, if you want to pick up a used 360, the fat white models... I don't know why that felt weird saying it. I'm a fat white model myself. The fat white models, they run way cheaper than the later models just because their days are numbered, especially now that they are around 20 years past their manufacturing date. I won't get into the technical side, but suffice to say, the most common red ring death was caused by faulty soldering on the GPU, which is why moronic techniques like the towel trick would work. Temporarily, anyway. Which, if you don't know, the towel trick was a solution that was spread online where you could wrap your red-ringed 360 in a couple of towels and then just let it run for a few hours. You were blocking the vents and trapping all of the heat that it was giving off. You're essentially insulating the console so it would basically cook itself, and the faulty cracked solder would actually melt and thus reconnect, at least temporarily, before they would then just die for good. Oh man, I got my first Red Rings of Death at the worst possible time. It was winter break of 2007. Pretty much all I asked for Christmas were 360 games. I was so hyped to just veg out over Christmas and play all of these seminal, once-in-a-generation games that I got. Only for my Xbox to shit the bed on like day 1 of the break. The towel trick brought it back for like a day, but that's it. Needless to say, I spent a lot of that break just over my friend's house. I lugged my new games with me, and I just played them on their consoles. I think I went through 3 360s in total, all of which were killed by the red ring. The failure rate was insane on these things. They were all ticking time bombs. Granted, all 3 of the 360s that I owned were used when I bought them, and I certainly put them to work too. That was my main source of entertainment, if that wasn't obvious from the entire premise of this video. So those things were constantly running. I definitely got my money's worth, at least relatively anyway. Man, talking about the winner of 2007, the 360 was home to so many great games. Even a lot of multi-platform games played best on the 360. Like, God bless you if your first exposure to Oblivion was on the PS3. There were a lot of multi-platform games that were just clearly developed from the ground up on the 360 and then ported onto the PS3 and PC. I remember it being not uncommon to play a PC game in the late aughts and the early 2010s, and the button prompts would just straight up be for an Xbox controller, even though you're on mouse and keyboard. A lot of those games had really bare bones graphics settings too, because they were developed for the 360's standardized hardware. On the PS3 side, it seemed to all trace back to the old conundrum of the PS3's cell architecture and how difficult it was to write code for. Early Assassin's Creed games, Splinter Cell, Double Agent, GTA 4, all these games ran notably worse on the PS3 than on the 360 because the honest truth was just that the 360 was easier to develop for. And the console came out a year earlier, so they had a lot more time with the dev kits and they had a better development process that was already ironed out. And again, I'm not trying to be biased here, we owned all 3 consoles, but in my opinion, the Xbox 360, that was the place to be in the 7th generation. It kind of breaks my heart that that's really the only console generation that you can make that argument for. The original Xbox was great, and it does hold a special place in my heart, don't get me wrong, but even as someone who didn't get a PS2 until, God, late 2004, it's still impossible to argue that anyone other than the PS2 won that console generation. And of course, you know, looking forward, don't even get me started on the Xbox One. In the later years of the console's lifespan, the 360 did feel a bit like it was petering out, like it was losing momentum, you know? They were pushing the Kinect, but I think we can all agree that the Kinect overpromised and underdelivered. And that's if you were even interested in it in the first place. I'm lazy, I kind of just want to sit comfortably with a controller in my hand, not wildly swinging around like a psycho. The tentpole titles that made the console great in the early days, they were no longer making the console great. You know, if you look at the franchises that were there the entire lifespan of the 360, look at what they started with and look what they ended with. We went from Halo 3 to Halo 4. From Gears of War to Gears Judgment. Raw became Ghost Recon Future Soldier. Saints Row became Saints Row 4. I mean, come on. I could go on, but the point is the magic just wasn't there anymore. The franchises that were once cornerstones of Xbox Live, they lost the sauce. That's a phrase, right? And half of them were on PS3 now anyway. And that unfortunately would just be the trend going forward in the next generation of Xbox consoles. I actually like 343 Halo games. I mean, maybe not so much Halo 4, but like, I'm one of the 10 people who will defend Halo 5. And the same thing with Gears 4 and Gears 5, like, those are pretty solid titles. But you can't deny that they just don't hold a candle to their predecessors. I mean, it's not even a competition. You know, I don't know anybody whose favorite Halo game is Halo 4 or Halo 5 or Halo Infinite. I don't know anybody whose favorite Gears game is Gears 4. Like, it is what it is. I'm not going to go too deeply into the future of the Xbox consoles past the 360 because, I mean, it sucks, right? We know they fumbled the Xbox One hard. And while I genuinely love my Series X, like, it's a fantastic console, I think the war has been over for a while now. Microsoft is pivoting the Xbox brand into something else. Something new, something amorphous. I don't really get it, but I don't know. All I can do is hope that they're successful. The 360 was, is, and will be the pinnacle of the Xbox brand. One that brought me so much joy. One that really nurtured my passion for video games. I wouldn't have this channel were it not for the 360. I wouldn't have my best friends if we didn't bond over late-night team tactical matches in COD 4 18 years ago. The console in 2025 is in a bit of a sorry state right now. The Xbox Live for the 360 seems to just cut in and out at random, and God forbid you try to do anything with the dashboard because it is bloated and slow as hell. Like, if you want to scroll through your download history to re-download an old game, which is now the only way to re-download an old purchase since the 360 store went down, you should probably carve out like a half hour to do that because of just how fucking slow it is. And it wasn't always like this. I really wish Microsoft would throw a little more love towards the console now that it is, you know, basically been sunsetted. At least make the dashboard more usable and Xbox Live stable. I don't know. That's probably asking way too much though, right? So, I'm gonna end this video with yet another personal anecdote. A bit of a somber one, but with a later ending. In about 2017, my Xbox account was hacked. It's a long story, but some Russian managed to change the email account associated with it, and it was a nightmare to get back because, you know, without my email associated with it, they couldn't send me any recovery stuff. It was a whole thing. But eventually I did get it back. No harm, no foul, right? They didn't use my credit card for anything. They didn't do anything with my account really at all. It was fine, except for one thing. For whatever reason, they deleted my entire friends list. Everybody that I had ever friended on Xbox Live or had ever friended me was gone. Now, this wasn't a huge deal for my close friends. I knew their gamer tags by heart, and even my less close friends, I could just text and be like, hey, what was your gamer tag? My account got hacked. And I could look at the friends list of my friends so that I could, you know, rebuild the list. But there were some people, some friends that I couldn't find. Some friends whose gamer tags I forgot how to spell, some real-life friends whose numbers I lost. A lot of them were my strictly online friends that I had met a decade prior, you know, over COD or Halo or whatever. Even the people who hadn't been online in years, it was still comforting to see their gamer tags and their gamer pictures in my friends list, because seeing their accounts would remind me of a better time. It would remind me of maybe a late night Rainbow Six Vegas 2 session with them that ran into the early morning. Or maybe the time we grinded Spec Ops missions in Modern Warfare 2 and got all 69 stars. But now, they were gone. And those memories would fade with them. Like tears in rain. But for real, it kind of made me sad to lose those friends. I mean, those Scottish guys that I spent a whole night playing Halo 3 with, gone. There was this loud guy with the most comical Boston accent I played the Left 4 Dead demo with over and over and over again. Gone. These two guys in their 30s who fucking wrecked at Gears 2 and took me under their wing for a few nights and taught me how to wall bounce. Gone. The first person that I ever became friends with online over a few matches of Team SWAT in Halo 2. Fucking 20 years ago now. Gone. Hoofster 28, I think was his name. I think he might have been from Brazil or something. I don't know. I can't remember. That's kind of my point. It's just all these memories, all these friends gone into the ether. You know what they say? Don't cry because it's over. Cry because it happened. Don't worry. Be happy. Like, I know it sounds lame to be sad over something like that, especially since I'm not a generally sentimental person, but it's like that friends list that I built over the course of 20 years, they were all pieces of a greater whole, you know? They all represented moments in time when Xbox Live was this fresh, new social experience. Time that has passed, but one that I'll always yearn for. When I bought my house, one of the first things I wanted to do was build a room in my basement. And in that sanctuary, I wanted to relive those glory days with my friends. So we built that room. I bought a bunch of cheap IKEA furniture, used computer monitors. I browsed eBay for old, battered Xbox 360s. I trash-picked some office chairs. I ran an Ethernet cord down through my walls from the second floor all the way down to my basement. Also, I could connect all of these 360 stations to an Ethernet hub and basically have my own Xbox 360 LAN room. So may I present to you the Goon Cave. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you expecting some sort of nice furnished basement man cave with like carpeting and a pool table? Fuck no, dude. Concrete floors, harsh lighting, sparse and discomforting decorations. Welcome to the Goon Cave, motherfucker. But there was just one problem though. There were 4 stations, but for 4 of us to play anything over LAN, that meant we'd need 4 copies of each game. So I started my hunt for cheap 360 games. Originally, I was looking for games that could be played in 4-player co-op, like World at War for Nazi zombies, Rainbow Six Vegas 2 for Terrorist Hunt, or like Tenchu Z. But as I hunted eBay and farmers markets and yard sales for these old multiplayer games, other games caught my eye. Like, hey, I remembered playing the demo for that back in 2007. I kind of always wondered what it was like. Maybe I'll pick it up too since it's cheap. Oh man, I was morbidly curious about that game, and it's cheap as dirt, so hey, I'll check it out. Maybe I'll even get all the achievements in them just for a laugh. I wonder if anybody else is curious about these weird old obscure games like I was. Maybe I'll make a YouTube channel where I document my journey through them. And suddenly, my YouTube channel's born. So, in a weird way, me chasing that dragon of early Xbox Live and early Xbox 360 led me here. Led me to you. So, thanks for watching. Oh. All right, I'm sitting down for this outro. Don't click off yet though. Oh. What's up? Sorry, my my gamer feet are not used to standing that long. Yeah, no, thank you guys so much for watching, genuinely. Please, let me know in the comments if you guys had a similar experience with the 360 to me. I know I can't be alone with that whole lobby hopping experience that I had with Halo 3, for example. Do you think Xbox Live became a less social place after the NXE, or was that just entirely anecdotal to me? Pretty much everything that I talked about in this video was how I perceived it, obviously. It was, not an objective truth necessarily. You may have had a very different experience than me with the 7th generation of consoles. I would love to hear about it, genuinely. If you have made it this far into the video, I really appreciate it. Like I said at the top of this video, I knew this was going to be probably very self-indulgent and personal, so I have no idea if anybody will actually give a shit to watch all the way through, but it's something that I've wanted to talk about for a long time now. 20 years is, I mean, that's a crazy amount of time. It really shows how stagnant I think gaming has become. It really shows how rapidly games were advancing technologically in the 90s and the early 2000s compared to now. Like, if you went back in time and told me in 2006 that 20 years later, I would be wasting my time playing a faithful remaster of Gears of War 1 instead of some crazy new cutting-edge game like Gears of War 1 was in 2006, I'd probably be a little depressed, to be honest. Honestly, there's so much more that I wanted to talk about here. The Xbox 360, I think, doesn't get enough credit for ushering in this generation of indie games, both with Xbox Live Arcade and their summer of arcade things, but also the actual Xbox indie game scene that they had and they launched on the 360. I probably could have tacked on another 20 minutes to this video just talking about that, but it's already long enough as it is. In the midst of writing this video too, Xbox announced that 50% Game Pass price hike, which, goddamn, dude. Being an Xbox fan has just been constant misery since 2013. Ugh. Anyway, feel free to join my Discord in the comments. We can talk further about this stuff there. I love hearing nostalgia. I'm a nostalgia vampire. That's what I always say. I like hearing other people's experience with this console. Let's talk about it in the comments. Let's talk about it in the Discord. Follow me on Blue Sky, and then also check out my Ko-fi donation page where you can get shoutouts, or if you just want to support me, that's great too. YouTube memberships, that's also a thing. You know, whatever. You've probably clicked off the video at this point. Who cares? Holding a microphone is cringe? What the fuck am I... How... What does this guy want from me? Fucking, how about you fucking donate to my coffee and then I'll use your money to buy a mic arm? How about that? God damn. What's cringe about? I mean, it is kind of an awkward mic to hold, but rude.